In this video, we'll learn how to change the brakes.
We'll go over steps on how to take the tire off, replace the brake pads, change the rotor, and explain how the brakes work.
The first step is we put the chalk behind the tire so it doesn't roll off.
After we get the chocks on the back tire and we loosen the nuts on the front tire, we're going to put the jack under the front of the car and jack the car up. So after we put the chocks behind the back tire, we're going to find the right size socket for the front tire and loosen these bolts before we jack up the car. So to take off the bolts, we're going to use a breaker bar and we're going to create torque. So by having the fulcrum, lever arm, and the point of force, we're going to turn the bolts and then we'll loosen each lug nut all the way around.
After we jack up the tire, we take off the lug nuts and then we take the tire off. After we remove the rotor, you'll learn to take the old brake pads out. In the diagram here, you'll see the brake pads in the support bracket. You'll just knock the pads out with a hammer. This is a diagram of the brake system. When you press on the brake pedal, you activate a booster that opens up pistons inside a master cylinder, which releases brake fluid into the brake line. This fluid flows to the caliper and wheel cylinder, which closes the brake pads onto the rotor and stops or slows down your car. This system involves Pascal's law, which states that when there's an increase in pressure at one point in a confined fluid, there's an equal increase at every other point.
Alright, so now we're going to remove the caliper, and to do that we're going to remove these two bolts on the back right here. These two, one up here and one down here. And to do that we're going to use an air ratchet.
What's different inside the truck?
Alright, so after we get these off, we're going to have to get these back bolts off. Let's see if I can get that. Whoa. Okay. There's one on the lower side too.
Probably not.
Okay, so now we have those loose. You're good. Alright, so we're going to try and get the rotor off, hitting with a hammer a few times. Alright, so it's not really working, so what we're going to do is we're going to put bolts on through the caliper holes, and we're going to push on the back of the rotor. Alright.
Now we're going to put the new rotor on the wheel.
Alright, so before we put the rest of the brake assembly on, we have to get the oil off the brakes, so we're going to use brake parts cleaner.
Can't be upside down.
Our can's a little broken.
Try to get both sides
Where is it? Here we go.
on the other side. Usually I do it off of the front.
Alright, you can stop it.
None.
Okay, so before we put the brake caliper back on, we're going to have to push these pistons back on. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this brake here. This is one of the old brakes, and then we're going to use this right here. It's a brake separator. We're going to just unscrew with it. And then we're going to push it.
Daddy.
And we're just going to turn it until it pushes this piston right here back in. side. Now we're good to go. Alright, so after we push the pistons back in right here, we're just going to set this right there, and then we're going to put the caliper assembly back on. Alright. We're going to put these bolts back into the back. And after we tighten these down by hand, we're going to tighten them down with the air ratchet. Okay. Alright, so after we hand tighten the two bolts on the back, we're going to use the air ratchet and just finish it off.
Now we're going to put the retainer clips on the brake pads. Now I'm going to put the brakes in the caliper mount.
Okay.
Stop it.
Okay, so now that we got the brake pads into the rotor assembly, we're going to put the caliper back on. First we're going to push these rubber pieces right here inside. And then what we got to do is we got to get this tab under the metal part right here. So we'll start by putting that right under there. And then we'll push the brake down. Make sure it stays up there. Push this down, make sure this doesn't get caught on the metal part up here. Right here. Push that down, up. And then we're just going to take a hammer.
Better not hit me.
And we're going to hit this right in there so that this tab is behind this one. And then all we got to do is put the two back screws in after we lube them up. Alright. Alright, so now that we got the caliper back onto the bracket, we're going to grease up these bolts to go back on both sides. So we're using caliper bolt grease. We're just going to squeeze it on right there. And then we just goop it up all over.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go lightly with this, you want to put quite a bit on there. Because this is what the caliper slides on, and that's what pushes the brakes. So, and then you just put that right back in there and screw that one in. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other one. This stuff looks disgusting. Okay.
It's kind of tasty.
Alright, so just spread that one around just like the other one. Make sure we get the whole bolt. And it's alright to have a little bit extra on there. Alright, so now we're going to take this one and we're going to put it right back into the bottom. Okay.
Take grease off the rotor.
And you make sure you don't get this grease on the rotor.
Or the packet grease on
it. Alright, you can stop. I can't turn them. Alright, so after we tighten these up by hand, we're going to use the Allen wrench and just finish it off. And you want to make sure the rubber seal goes right back over the bolt. make a tight seal. Come on. Almost there. Alright. Just make sure that goes back over and then do the same thing for the bottom. I'm gonna make sure I can get these real tight too. Okay. Alright. Alright, so after we got the screws back in, we got the caliper on, we got the new rotor on, and now we just have to put the tire back on.
This is like totally not safe.
Alright, now we put put some bolts on.
You didn't put the chrome slide down. There we go.
Alright, so now that we got the tire on and the lugs back on, we're going to use the air ratchet and just screw these on, finish them off. And you want to go in a star formation, so you want to start this one, go to this one, this one, this one, and then do this last one. So. That's it. Alright, so after we tighten the lugs with the air wrench, we're going to use a torque wrench and torque these down to 95 foot-pounds. And we're also going to do the star formation with this. So push it down until you reach about 95. And do the next one. That's it.